In Venezuela, authorities of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces activated integral defense operational zones in the northeastern states of Nueva Esparta, Sucre, and Delta Macuro. In Ecuador, the government militarizes the province of Imbabura after talks with indigenous communities failed to yield results. And in Iran, the government denounced U.S. President Donald Trump's rhetoric promoting peace while being responsible for wars worldwide. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, on early Tuesday morning, authorities of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces activated the integral defense operational zones in the northeastern states of Nueva Esparta, Sucre, and Delta Macuro. The defensive exercise began with the deployment of military forces and resources with the objective of protecting the Atlantic Ocean and the Atlantic Caribbean coast from any international threat, as part of the strategic preparation of the people to continue winning peace and exercising their right to life and sovereignty. This new activation adds to the 8 operations previously implemented in La Guaira, Carabobo, Aragua, Zulia, Falcón, Anzoátegui, Monagas, and Bolívar, whose territories are ready to defend their sovereignty and in a civil military police fusion.
Atención, zona de defensa integral.
Well, attention integral defense zone. Nueva Esparta.
Zona de defensa integral Sucre.
Attention integral defense zone Sucre.
Activados plenamente.
And Delta and Macuro. Well, they are fully activated to check and leave in optimal condition the 27 tasks or 27 actions of the entire integral defense plan. Combining preparation for prolonged active and creative popular resistance and the permanent offensive, taking initiative in all fields, in all areas. The entire military force of the Bolivarian Armed Forces is deployed, checking all tasks, together with the legitimate civil political authorities of the country, the states, the municipalities, and our powerful popular movement, the popular power, and the police forces. Perfect fusion of the people, the military, and the police. Well, we are fine-tuning the mechanisms to achieve peace. Every day, achieve peace, exercise full sovereignty, and defend the right to life and joy of the people. Activated.
And on Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro called on all social movements to counteract the lies about the Bolivarian nation on digital platforms. The Venezuelan president pointed out that the offensive of psychological warfare and military threats from August to October had among its collateral objective the intention of damaging the national economy. However, he emphasized that the nation has a resilient structure. In this regard, President Maduro highlighted the patriotic spirit and dedication of the Venezuelan people, the National Bolivarian Armed Forces, and the security forces, emphasizing the level of commitment they have demonstrated in defense of national sovereignty.
Have the certainty that we are on top. We're even preparing a second phase of stabilization of the new economical model of the 13 engines to advance in a great objective that we have to accomplish, which is the production and the substitution, I would say, in a radical way, at 100% of all of the sectors and products that are imported, and the strengthening of the internal financial system and the money system in the country with a virtuous circle that we're going to accomplish. That is one of the new objectives that will be accomplished, I would say, in with a lot of strength that will be established, and I could say today that the collateral damage that they have pretended, the fascist extremists that are asking to invade Venezuela, and the campaign of threats in the military sector and psychological war of the government of the United States, we have managed to contain, and Venezuela is going to have a last 3 months, October, November, December, of production, work, generation of jobs, and fulfilling it entirely, so we have Christmas that are happy in community and with family.
The United States experienced another violent weekend with at least 12 people killed and 40 injured in 3 shootings that disrupted high school events in 2 states. With this, the number of mass shootings recorded in 2025 is approaching 340. In Mississippi, 2 incidents involving firearms occurred after high school football games, leaving 8 people dead and 20 injured. Governor Tate Reeves described the acts as meaningless violence and promised to bring those responsible to justice. According to the non-governmental organization Gun Violence Archive, as of October 11, 2025, the United States has recorded 337 mass shootings. We have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Ecuador government will militarize the province of Imbabura after talks with indigenous communities failed to yield results. Government Minister Saida Rovira said the strike had to end, assuring that, in her opinion, the government exhausted all possibilities for progress and for resolving the situation through dialogue with indigenous communities. The minister added that starting this Tuesday, the government will intensify the actions of its public forces in that province to restore mobility. The country has seen protests in several areas since September 18th, following the neoliberal measures implemented by Daniel Noboa, which have created uncertainty among the people. In this context, the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities, CONAI, denounced the racism and state violence committed against protesters during recent days of protest. Precisely, the organization's president, Marlon Vargas, asserted that the march scheduled for October 12 in Quito was repressed by the police and armed forces with excessive use of force and violence. The indigenous leader assured that there was never any intention to cause disturbances or to take over the city, and pointed out that the executive is seeking to create a narrative of violence to justify the repression. Although the armed forces denied the incident, Vargas said that this type of event reflects the persistence of a state that continues to look down on indigenous peoples. And Colombian unions announced the organization of a national mobilization in support of the social reforms promoted by the government of Gustavo Petro. The Colombian Federation of Educators and the Unified Central of Workers stated that the demonstration will take place next Tuesday in Bolivar Square, Bogotá. The national mobilization demands the approval of healthcare reforms, the defense of pension reform, and the representation of the organic bill to reform the general participation system. The call also seeks to reject the position of Magistrate Jorge Enrique Ibáñez, who presented an unfavorable argument on the pension law to the Constitutional Court. And in Argentina, the educational community organized a nationwide strike to demand improvements in teaching and learning conditions. Workers and students from all levels of education marched from the National Congress to the Pisurno Palace, the building of the Secretariat of Education, in protest against the educational cuts imposed by Javier Milei. In this scenario, protesters demanded the adoption of a new education funding law, the convening of the National Teachers Joint Committee, the restoration of the National Teacher Incentive Fund, and a larger education budget. Teaching activities were suspended as an act of defense of public education. In addition, the national strike included multiple initiatives such as educational tents, public classes, open radio broadcasts, caravans, and activities in squares and public spaces. And in Belgium, on Tuesday, workers and trade unions took to the streets of Brussels and other cities across the country to demand stronger public services and protest against the government's austerity measures. Union leaders assert that the budget cuts that the government claims will stabilize the economy are affecting the rights of the working class, which is why the country's major unions organized a national strike. In response to the protest, riot police in Brussels, Antwerp, and Liege repressed thousands of demonstrators using batons, water cannons, and tear gas. In this scenario, injured people and several arrests have been reported. The strike affected land and air transport, schools, and public administration. In Spain, several areas reported flooding, especially in the northeast region of Catalonia, as a result of heavy rainfall. The state meteorological agency declared a red alert in the province of Tarragona, as several people were stranded in their homes and vehicles. Catalonian emergency services reported an increase in number of calls received, with 998 incidents registered, although the existence of injured or missing persons has not yet been confirmed. In this regard, the authorities suspended all educational, sports, and social activities in high-risk areas and urged residents to avoid travel and remain in shelter. And the Yellow River, China's second longest river, has seen its first flood of the year following torrential rainfall. The Yellow River Conservancy Commission of the Ministry of Water Resources announced on Monday. Due to heavy rainfall in the lower and middle reaches of the Yellow River, the water flow at the Tongguan hydrological station on the river's main stream had surged to 5,010 cubic meters per second, surpassing the threshold for meeting flood criteria. Affected by the combined flow from the Wehi River and the northern mainstream of the Yellow River, the flood was warm. It is expected that the water level will continue to rise and the flood control situation in the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River remains severe. And also in China, the 30th anniversary of the 4th United Nations World Conference on Women was celebrated on Monday in Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirmed the Asian giant's commitment to the integral development of women with the announcement of a series of new proposals and measures presented during the meeting. Xi noted that the measures taken by China over the past 30 years have generated profound and far-reaching changes in the well-being and prospects of women in China and the world. In this sense, the president announced that in the next 5 years, China will donate an additional $10 million to UN Women and allocate $100 million for cooperation with international organizations on projects to promote the development of women in the world. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. The final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Iranian government denounced the hypocrisy of U.S. President Donald Trump's rhetoric, who promotes peace while being responsible for wars worldwide. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs accused Washington of active complicity in the genocide perpetrated by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories. In addition, Iran denounced the fact that the United States is blocking all action in the UN Security Council and international judicial bodies aimed at holding those responsible for the genocide accountable. In this regard, Iran pointed out that the contradiction between Trump's words about peace and hostile actions. In this scenario, Iran reaffirms that the will of the Persian people to defend their independence and national dignity with courage, despite the threats and sanctions imposed by the United States. Once again, Israel violates the ceasefire agreement with the resistance movement Hamas, killing at least 6 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. Israeli occupation forces carried out an attack in Han Yunis, in the south of the coastal enclave, in the Shujaya neighborhood of Gaza City. 5 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli army, which justified the attack by stating that its forces opened fire because the Palestinians had approached troops stationed along the redeployment line. Meanwhile, another person was killed during a raid on their home in the Al-Sika area. In this scenario, the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory, Francesca Albanese, condemned Israel's continued killing of Palestinians following the ceasefire agreement. And at least 154 freed Palestinian hostages will be forced to live in exile as part of the exchange for Israeli captives held in Gaza. The forced exile constitutes a flagrant violation of citizenship rights of the released hostages and exemplifies the double standards that characterize exchange agreements. It should be noted that these Palestinians are being taken from Gaza to unknown destinations and for unknown purposes, in flagrant violation of all the rights. Experts suggest that the former hostages could be taken to various countries in the region such as Tunisia, Algeria, Turkey, without access to citizenship in their country of origin. The United Nations have received authorization from the Israeli government to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip after the Israeli blockade has caused over 450 people to die from starvation. The immediate delivery of humanitarian aid is part of the first phase of the agreement signed between Israel and the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas. The United Nations deputy spokesman Farhan Haq said they have the necessary authorization to bring aid to Gaza, and that has been agreed with the Israeli authorities, adding that the aid is currently at several points outside the enclave while the details of its distribution are finalized. The opening of humanitarian corridors is key after the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, effective from 9 a.m. local time on October 10th.
We currently have 1,300 trucks of supplies ready to go into Gaza that are in Egypt, in Jordan, ready to move. And we've got about another 1,000 trucks worth of supplies that are currently on the way to Gaza.
And the European Union will resume its monitoring work at the Rafah crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip next Wednesday. The High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, confirmed the relaunch of the civilian mission in a post on the X platform. Kallas praised the diplomatic progress achieved under the peace plan promoted by U.S. President Donald Trump. She also warned that maintaining peace in Gaza will be extremely complex and called on the international community to support efforts to ensure the continuity of the process. And at least 300,000 South Sudanese fled the country in 2025 due to the escalation of violence between supporters of President Salva Kiir and those of Vice President Riek Machar, who is on trial for crimes against humanity. According to the United Nations Human Rights Commission in South Sudan, the fighting reached a level of intensity not seen since the signing of the 2017 ceasefire agreement. According to UN figures, 148,000 refugees sought shelter in Sudan, 50,000 in Ethiopia, the same number in Uganda, 30,000 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and 25,000 in Kenya. Added to this are 2 million internally displaced within South Sudan, while the country is hosting 560,000 exiles from the neighboring nation. And in Cameroon, opposition candidate Issa Chiroma declared himself the winner of the October 12th presidential election. On Tuesday, the leading opposition candidate Issa Chiroma unilaterally declared himself the electoral victor and urged the incumbent president Paul Biya to concede defeat. In this context, the Constitutional Council, the body with the authority to announce the winner, has not yet issued a statement regarding the official election results. The Constitutional Council has until October 26 to announce the outcome. Cameroon People's Democratic Movement Party rejected Chiroma's claim and declared that the candidate lacks the results from the polling stations.
We call on the regime in place.
And on Tuesday, Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina dissolved the National Assembly by decree ahead of a vote promoted by the opposition to remove him from office amid a political crisis in the nation. The president has faced more than 2 weeks of straight protests led by young demonstrators, which reached a pivotal point on Saturday when an elite military unit joined the protests and called for him and his ministers to step down. Through a speech broadcasted on the official Facebook account of the presidency, Rajoelina defended the dissolution of parliament as a way to restore order within the nation and strengthen democracy, and declared that he had to leave the country in fear for his life. And this we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.